The release of Destiny Soldier brought forth a new archetype to the TCG as well as a significant level of new support for two older ones. Among these three most notable entries from Destiny Soldiers, most of the excitement or hype seems to rest with the new support received for Darklords. In fact, a number of individuals seemingly believe that Darklords is already poised to become one of the top decks in the TCG meta. Well, let's see if this mindset is supported by substance or just built on a shaky foundation. Like always, let's look at the direct support first. The new boss monster of Darklords, Morningstar, is definitely hit or miss, leaving something to be desired for me. A 3000 attacker that has the capacity to call for reinforcements, in a sense, to the level of the number of effect monsters on the opponent's field, in addition to evading targeting effects when another Darklord exists on the field. Finally, it has a life point gain effect to compensate somewhat for the life point payment effect associated with the on-field effect for the second generation Darklords. In a lot of respects, Morningstar is the quintessential OTK card. Overall, though, there are problems with Morningstar. It needs to be tribute summoned to receive its swarming effect, and even then, that effect is dependent on the opponent's board. Thus, it is not guaranteed even if you evade the various summons interrupters and negators that the opponent could use, or even effect negators like Effect Veiler. Also, this swarm effect drops precipitously in value as the duel progresses, increasing the dead draw capacity of Morningstar. Overall, for me, Morningstar is not even close to worth running because there are too many factors that need to be hit to get its effect off effectively. It is not nearly consistent enough. Desire is the former boss monster of the archetype. Overall, Desire is not as bad as some people seem to think. The ability to normal summon it with a single tribute reduces the penalty of its no special summons restriction. The ability to remove a monster from the field without destroying can also be useful in a number of situations. Finally, its level 10 standing helps make either Gustav or Dora, mitigating the negatives associated with the lost attack for its effect utilization. However, despite Desire not being as bad as some might want to sell it as or believe, it's still not good enough, in my opinion, to run it. Not surprisingly, Ixchel is the most important second-generation Darklord. She is basically a monster form of trade-in relative to Darklord cards. Discard herself and another Darklord card to draw 2 cards. As a second-generation Darklord, she also has the generic return to the deck from the graveyard to activate Darklord spell and trap effects for 1000 life points. At 2500 attack and 2900 defense, she can be annoying to remove from the field, especially when backed by that on-field effect, and the level 10 standing opens the door to the versatility of Gustav or Dora for XZ summoning. Overall, there really is no good reason to run less than 3 copies. Tezcatlipoca is alright, I guess. Its in-hand effect protects on-field Darklord monsters from destruction through its discard, which can be useful, especially when the opponent knows it is in-hand. However, it is nothing overly useful in the overall play strategy beyond being a second-generation Darklord monster. For while the attack is nice, its level 9 standing is somewhat awkward as the level 9 XZ pool is not great, so I only run 1 copy. The strength of Asmodeus was largely a result of its stalling nature due to the effects that are given to the 2 tokens summoned after its destruction and transit to the graveyard. However, the principal means of efficiently summoning Asmodeus due to its special summoning restriction, Valhalla, has become more hit or miss with the introduction of the new support. Asmodeus' effect is also hurt by the advancement of the meta to a state where there are many more means to remove monsters without either destroying them or sending them to the graveyard. Overall, there just are too many hoops at this point to jump through for Asmodeus to be useful. Superbia has always been the backbone to any quality Darklord deck, and with the new support, its effect only becomes more useful. Superbia still remains the superior swarming element to a card like Morningstar. Frequently, Superbia will either be summoning a second-generation Darklord with spell and or trap fuel in the graveyard, or a Kristya to lock down special summoning with a 2900 and 2800 attacker on board. As a level 8 Dark monster, it also works nicely with both trade-in and various Dark support cards as well. Its 2900 attack is also nothing to sneeze at, allowing it to hit over a lot of opposing targets. 3 copies in all Darklord decks. Zerato is one of those cards that basically, in my opinion, screams, run me at 1 copy. For in this deck, its effect is certainly selectively useful, and the increased searchability and recursion in the deck makes running only 1 copy much more viable. Similar to Superbia, as a level 8 Dark monster, it also works nicely with various draw and Dark support cards, as well as having the ability to make quality rank 8 XZ plays. I will admit that when I first read Nasten, I did not give it enough credit. It has a nice effect of being able to innately special summon itself, but at the cost of sending 2 Darklord cards to the graveyard. This effect is typically only significantly useful during the first couple of turns, because those are the periods of time where you're going to have the most resources to utilize the effect, but overall it is not that much of a liability later due to its Darklord name. Nasten's effect also provides some inconsistent, let's say, versatility through its on-field recycling effect, depending on if and what Darklord spell or trap was discarded for its summons. Its level 7 standing has advantages and disadvantages. The advantages will be discussed later, while the disadvantages are clear. The rank 7 pool is one of the worst in the game in my opinion, so XZ plays with this guy will be few and far between. Overall though, I run 2 copies. Amdusc is a lot more valuable than I think some realize, just because it's the only single tribute second-generation Dark monster at the moment. The From the Hand effect is actually rather useful too, for adding back either a Contact to summon a Superbia to get Superbia's effect, or an Ixchel for drawing purposes. While the 1800 attack is nothing much, especially for a 1 tribute monster, the 2800 defense is certainly useful. In my opinion, Amdusc is important, because getting a second-generation Darklord on the field for this deck is important, but in contrast to Nasten, you want to do it with as little resource utilization as possible. You know what? This guy is just so bad, it's not even worth trying to pronounce its name. Just don't run it. When it was first released, maybe Marie might have been worth it, but yeah, that was over a decade ago, so at the moment now, oh ye god no. Nurse Reficule is the centerpiece of the infamous and incredibly hated Nurse Burn deck. In a Darklord deck, though, while her name does meet the conditions for the support, she's certainly not worth it. While not in the TCG yet, I really don't see Ukobak as a useful monster in this deck if the spell and trap support remains the same. Basically, you're going to need one heck of a spell or trap card that can be recycled back for this card's effect to matter. I'm sure most people would probably just end up running that Foolish Burial that dumps spells and traps, Foolish Burial of Belonging, instead of this guy. The fact that he's a Darklord doesn't really seem to help that much when he's on the field. Also, this card not being a level 4 is seemingly a unnecessary handicap. For his level 3 standing could work if you use the Speedroid engine, but if he were level 4, he'd be much more valuable, at least in my opinion. Contact is a defense position monster reborn, and not surprisingly should be run at 3 copies, always. It is important to note, though, that while Contact can trigger Superbia's effect when activated from the hand, when Contact is activated by the second-generation Darklord recycling capacity, Superbia does not receive its effect because it misses timing. The last thing that happens is the Contact being returned to the deck, not the effect of summoning the Superbia being activated, so no extra summons for the Superbia. Banishment is largely Darklord's answer to Diamond Core, possessing the ability to add any Darklord card from the deck to the hand. Though once per turn activation condition can be a little annoying, but manageable, the recycling capacity of various Darklord monsters commonly makes this card a +1 over the break-even at the cost of only 1,000 life points. Obviously, running 3 is definitely what you should do. Rebellion is a great card in my opinion for targetless spot popping of any opponent's card is almost always useful. The ability to recycle activate it significantly reduces the detriment of the discard and can lead to a double pop off of a Rebellion being activated on field and then a second generation Darklord activating it from the graveyard, which can disrupt the opponent's play quite effectively. The discard is not always bad either, allowing the player to dump a Darklord into the grave for later special summoning. I like running 3 copies because the discard element works actually well with this particular type of build at increasing your playmaking opportunities, and because Rebellion is a key interrupter card for this particular archetype, and being an interrupter card, it can obviously stop the opponent's plays in their tracks, helping you keep the duel in hand when your initial draw isn't very strong. Enchantment is a nice 1-copy card for this deck. I think most people only view this card as an OTK enabler by taking the opponent's monster and then unleashing numerous attacks against the opponent either directly or the remnants of their field, because non-targeting monster control taking, I guess we call it, is pretty useful. However, Enchantment is also a solid interrupter by stealing an opponent's monster and stopping the current play in its tracks. For example, facing ABC, Enchantment can swipe a B, eliminating the ability of the opponent to go into ABC Buster during that current turn. If you're playing something like Totally Awesome Heroes, your opponent summons Tin Goldfish. This doesn't look like it's going to go well for me. I know, I'm going to flip over Enchantment, I'll steal your Tin Goldfish. Oh, no Bahamut Shark for you, no Totally Awesome. Now I can prepare to defeat you next turn. Overall, I guess the moral of the story with Enchantment is it's just not an OTK enabler. It's actually a pretty good interrupter, too, especially when destroying the monster outright like you would do with Rebellion might not be the best solution. Overall, it must be noted that it is important to have a variety of second-generation Darklord monsters for their on-field effects and due to their ritual beast-like special summoning restriction of only being able to special summon 1 per turn. Fortunately, the ability to recycle Contact is kind of like a pseudo-ambush in a way, allowing one to somewhat sidestep this condition. For the remaining monsters, while I do not like running the stun version of this deck, I don't like its consistency, and I'm not a fan of that playstyle. I do run 1 copy of Archlord Kristya, because it is a quality option in any fairy-centric deck as a 2800 attacker that can prevent special summoning by both players. I also like to add some Synchro options to this deck, because Contact does special summon monsters in defense position, so having a few select tuner does increase OTK probability and versatility in my play experience. For this particular build, I like running 1 copy of Glow-Up Bulb and 1 copy of Genex ally Birdman. Glow-Up Bulb is quality for this deck, for the level of special summoning opens the door to normal summoning Glow-Up Bulb, and then use its effect to special summon itself from the graveyard for further Synchro play. Remember when I said Nasten's advantage of being a level 7? A lot of that comes into play, in my opinion, with Glow-Up Bulb. You special summon Nasten, normal summon Glow-Up Bulb, make a Scarlight, special summon Glow-Up Bulb with its effect, make a hot red Archfiend Dragon Abyss. Glow-Up Bulb can also be used as tribute fodder, and at worst, can be used as a meat shield, potentially buying you another turn to draw what you need, because this deck can be rather explosive in the draws. It's one of those one turn away type decks. Birdman is nice, due to its ability to return a Darklord to the hand, like Ixchel or Amdusc, to activate their in-hand effects, or even this next card. The final monster I run are 2 copies of Juragedo, which I feel should almost be kind of a staple tech in this deck. Not only does it provide important life point gain to offset recycling costs, it significantly aids OTK potential, as well as innately special summon itself to provide tribute fodder for the higher levels during main phase 2. For the remainder of the spells, I run 1 copy of Raigeki, but I don't like running Soul Charge because the Darklords have that once per turn special summoning restriction, the mismatched levels, and the loss of the battle phase. Soul Charge, in my opinion, in this deck is too often a dead card due to either low life points because using the recycling effect, or too few monsters in the graveyard. Soul Charge in the more stun build makes more sense because you can either summon the Vanity's Fiend or one of the 3 copies of Archlord Kristya you run to try to lock down your opponent. In this build, it doesn't make as much sense. I go a little lighter on the draw power for this deck over the standard build due to preferences for more consistency with 2 copies of Trade-In and 2 copies of Allure of Darkness, along with the 1 allowable copy of Upstart Goblin. Finally, I run 1 copy of Foolish Burial. Burial is great in this particular deck build due to the versatility it provides for dumping a Glow-Up Bulb, dumping a Kristya, dumping a Superbia, or even an Ixchel if you have an Amdusc in hand to return the Ixchel to your hand to then activate its in-hand drawing effect. Finally, I run 1 copy of Monarchs Stormforth to support all of the tribute monsters in this deck and increase the ability to eliminate problem monsters when the need arises. While I don't play it, another option is because this particular build actually runs level 4 or lower monsters, is Instant Fusion for Norden summoning. For remember, Norden is a fairy that can be revived by Superbia, which will then trigger Norden's effect to get a free Juragedo or one of the tuners from the graveyard to make a rank 4 play or a Synchro play. Closing out the traps, I run 3 copies of Call of the Haunted, for I like and have seen more personal success with the mass revival strategy using Darklord over the stun lock strategy, and 1 copy of Oasis of Dragon's Soul. Another option for those who are not interested in this strategy or are less enthusiastic about going the generic Solemn Brigade route is Drowning Mirror Force, because this deck can have some potentially open fields, either due to brick hands or the opponent spending a lot of resources to remove your overall field, and Drowning can definitely buy you some time and also hide among all of the potential bluffs this deck can lay down. For the extra deck, I run 1 Star Eater, 1 Leo, the Keeper of the Sacred Tree, 1 Hot Red Archfiend Dragon Abyss, 1 Vermillion Dragon Mech, 1 Scarlight Red Dragon Archfiend, 1 Starlight Spark Dragon. Really, any generic level 8 Synchro is fine. I seem to get more mileage out of Spark than Omega, but some people might just prefer Omega's hopping out of the way ability and reducing your opponent's resource aspect. 1 Clearwing Synchro Dragon, 1 Hi-Speedroid Chanbara, 1 number 81 Superdreadnough Rail Cannon Super Dora, 1 Superdreadnough Rail Cannon Gustav Max, 1 number 95 Galaxy Eyes Dark Matter Dragon, 1 number 107 Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon, 1 number 38 Hope Harbinger Dragon Titanic Galaxy, 1 Divine Dragon Knight Felgrand, and 1 Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon. So, is Darklord just hype or substance? I can definitely see Darklord supporters citing the recent results from the YCS in Anaheim, where Darklords netted 2 spots in the top 32. On its face, this can definitely be seen as valid evidence for substance over hype, but personally, I'm not sold yet. Recall that Cyber Angels, or Herald of Perfection featuring Ben 10, depending on one's perspective, had some early success when they first came out in the TCG. And what have they done since? That's right, crickets. Right now, one has to see if Darklords have legitimate staying power, or if it's a scenario where their success is based on opponent unfamiliarity with the cards and how the archetype functions, and just straight luck. Because when you use the standard build, if you get lucky and you slap down that Banishment or Kristya to lock out your opponent from special summoning, and they don't have an answer, it's almost kind of an auto-win, and right now that seems to be what Darklords is doing. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of winning via Darklords. It's more we're winning via special summoning lockdown, and that's at least how I'm viewing it right now. The problem I see with the standard build is that, similar to Monarchs, it bricks at a much higher rate than other highly competitive decks. Overall, I prefer this type of Darklord build over the standard stun lockout build, for I find it to be much more consistent. Although it must be acknowledged that the stun build does have kind of a higher ceiling in a sense, where when it goes off, it typically has a slightly better chance of winning when this deck goes off. But in my experience, this deck goes off at a higher rate. And that higher rate is the important thing for my personal playstyle. Overall, though, only time will tell whether Darklords can be a consistently competitive deck, or if they will be only sporadically competitive. But at this moment, they are certainly competitive. Well, that is my Darklord deck. Thank you for your attention and your time. I'm out.